Hey everybody, welcome to the Leek. I'm John as always, and it's time for the January 6th Theros Beyond Death preview recap here. And we've got a whole lot. We've got 19 cards, so let's get going. Up first is a card that is currently being translated as Exile of Life's Gift, or in its native Portuguese, Exile da Vida, which sounds much nicer. This is a single white mana for an enchantment creature, Nymph. It's got lifelink. Pay 1 generic mana and sacrifice it. A creature or enchantment you control gains protection from a color of your choice until end of turn. It tries to be Mother of Runes, but you only get to do it one single time. It's fine for limited. It's going to be a cute little combat trick. It's going to be a God's Willing that your opponent knows is coming, which is not as good. And outside of limited, it's not really going to have any play. So, see ya, Exile da Vida. Up next is Soul Guide Lantern. Soul Guide Lantern is a single generic mana for an artifacted uncommon. When it ETBs, exile target card from a graveyard, tap it and sacrifice it, exile each opponent's graveyard, or you can pay 1 tap and sack it to draw yourself a card. So it's not quite a Progenitus or a relic of Progenitus. It's a little bit different. You have to choose if you want to draw a card or exile the graveyards. It doesn't exile your graveyards. You get an ETB single card exile. Cool little stuff here. Probably only sideboard only in limited. And I have to imagine that Relic is probably just still better than this for any constructed format. Up next is Exile Morphosis. Exile Morphosis is 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura at common. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue fish with base power and toughness 0/1. This, of course, is just like Frogify, except better because it's a 0/1 instead of a 1/1, and it gives you a blue devotion, which is going to be solid for any deck that cares about that. Plus, it's an enchantment, triggers Constellation. Whole bunch about this is going to be really good. If you've been remembering Kasmina's transmutation being bad in War of the Spark, you should have learned differently. Frogify was fine in Throne of Eldraine, and Exile Morphosis is going to be solid in Theros Beyond Death. Outside of limited, there's just better removal. Fateful End is up next, 2 and a red for an instant at uncommon. Fateful End deals 3 damage to any target, scry 1. It's 3 mana, it's not 1 mana, I know. Just don't get Lightning Bolt. If we have scry on here, so it's kind of like Magma Jet. This is the price we got to pay for modern kind of burn spells generally, especially below the rare level. And this is going to be great in limited and could see some standard play. I think 3 is probably just a little bit too much. There's just better burn for the mono red deck, but limited is going to love this card. Oh, and I forgot, those cards were previewed by Hinalika, Ashlizzle, Maro, and Etherhub. Up next, previewed by Noxious, is our first Titan, croaks, Titan of Death's Hunger. Croaks is black-red for a legendary creature Elder Giant at Mythic. It's a 6/6. That sounds scary, but when it enters the battlefield, you do sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, like a Titan does, each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. That's a lot of double negatives there. There I guess 1 double negative, but still, it took me a while to parse what that means. Escape cost is black, red, and exile 5 other cards from your graveyard, in which case you get to re-trigger that and keep your 6/6 that time. This card is scary, but you have to make sure that you're escaping with it. The first time, making your opponent discard a card and hurting them because they probably want to discard a land, but if they do, they're going to take 3. That's cute, but it's not really worth a spell. What is worth a spell is getting the 6/6 out. That's going to be very scary because it's going to re-trigger that, and every time it attacks, it's going to be re-triggering it, meaning this might be attacking like a 9/6, which is very scary. It's especially scary because your opponent can't do anything about it. Typically in this case where your opponent's going to make you discard, well, you hold back your lands, but holding back your lands, holding back nothing is exactly the same. You're going to be taking 3. It looks like a slam dunk bomb. In constructed, I'm sure something cute could be done with it. We'll have to see if escape makes a real standard kind of splash or not, but I'm sure Commander's going to love this in various decks, and it just looks very, very scary. Up next is something else very scary. Chiara Bests the Sea God. Chiara Bests the Sea God is 5 blue for an enchantment saga, thankfully at Mythic. Act 1, create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hex proof. Act 2, tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They also don't untap during their controller's next untap step. Act 3 doesn't matter because the game's over. But if it's not, Act 3 is gain control of target permanent an opponent controls, untap it. This card is about as close as a card I've ever seen to just saying the words 5 blue blue, you win the game. This is insane. An 8/8 hexproof, sure, it costs 7. That's pretty scary. The hexproof is honestly the thing that I'm least concerned about here, but it's hexproof, so I hate it. Act 2, tapping everything your opponent has. And it not untapping means that you are alpha striking in with at least an 8/8. And if you have anything else, the game's just over. The odds of you getting to Act 3 on this are so low because your opponent will be dead. And then if you do get to Act 3, their stuff is still tapped. So if you're, I don't know, 18 damage or whatever, the first turn didn't do it, certainly is going to do it the second time. This is terrifying. It makes me hope the format is really, really, really fast so that this is actually really hard to pull off. Because otherwise this card is insane. And again, thankfully it's mythic. Thankfully it's not a cycle of oops, I win cards, because this is the closest I've ever seen to I win this game of limited. This card is in my deck. This match is no longer interesting. And that's real bad for a limited format. Hopefully I'm wrong. Non-limited is too expensive. It's not going to do anything. And that was previewed by Prof. Up next is previewed by Magic. Wizards is Careless Celebrant. Careless Celebrant is 1 and a red for a creature, Satyr Shaman at uncommon. It's a 2/1. Whenever it dies, well, I guess when it dies, it's only going to do that once. It deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. This is great. It's a 2/1, but it trades up to 3 drops, 4 drops, 5 drops, some 6 drops. This would trade up to by dealing 4 damage, 2 before the fact and 2 after the fact. This card just seems fantastic for limited. Constructed, it could even make its way into mono red. The fact that it doesn't hit the opponent's face for 2 damage probably dials it back and may not give it a spot. But if you want a budget option, or if you just want to do a quick little mono red aggro deck, I could see this having play in standard. In older formats, again, the fact that it doesn't hit face means I'm not putting this in my Canlander deck or anything like that. But yeah, this looks great for limited. Next is our next Titan, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Uro is 1 green blue for a legendary creature, Elder Giant. At Mythic, it's a 6/6. When it ETBs, you sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever it ETBs or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So you cast a Growth Spiral and a Healing Salve, I guess. Escape, green, green, blue, blue. Exile 5 other cards. This one looks slightly less scary than Croxa, because Croxa is just hitting for 9, probably. Or if it's not, it's making your opponent discard actual real cards. Uro is gaining you life and drawing you cards and establishing the board, which are all very good things. This card's still a slam dunk bomb. Love it. It's just not as terrifying as Croxa. But again, it's going to be fantastic and limited. Everything about the card is solid. Constructed competitive, I don't entirely know. We'll see if it fits into a deck or not, but I can certainly see Commander loving this. Maybe even Canlander might look at this for various decks that want to get land going real fast, and that could definitely get this out. I think this has big implications for constructed 100 card singleton decks, not so much for other formats really. Up next is Whirlwind Denial. Whirlwind Denial is 2 and a blue for an instant at uncommon. For each spell and ability your opponents control, counter it unless its controller pays 4. So limited, this is just 2 and a blue, counter the spell unless they pay 4. We've seen that before. Spell Shrivel might have been one of the last one. Actually, I think that was pay 3. Pay 4 is actually pretty darn good. This will be a hard counter most of the time for 1 spell. Obviously, the additional spells and such, well, we're looking at Storm. Whenever you see these words, you're always thinking about Storm. This is a Storm killer. There are other options out there, of course. I don't know if there's great mono blue options. We do have things like Counterflux, but Whirlwind Denial looks like it's built for anti-storm hate in eternal formats. As well, don't forget that this is ability too, so this is actually a stifle. There's a lot going on in this card. I think it's going to have definite constructed implications for possibly many formats. This might be one of the sort of chase uncommons, the uncommons that might actually, not be worth a quarter. They might be worth like 3/4, maybe even $1. In limited, this is going to be a pretty decent counter spell. Most counter spells you may not want to play in limited. This one, I'm going to play this way more than anybody should. Up next is Archon of Sun's Grace. Archon of Sun's Grace is 2 white for a creature Archon at rare. It's a 3/4 flying lifelink. Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink. Well, that's weird, but it's got Constellation, so whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. Also, it has lifelink as long as this Archon sticks around. This card's just great. A 3/4 flyer for 4 with lifelink is already something that we're probably going to play. And the fact that anytime we trigger Constellation, we're getting a 2/2 flyer lifelink, this is going to get out of control real fast in limited. Seems like a great card for limited. Outside of limited, looks maybe a little casual. We'll have to see if Constellation really is a thing in standard. I don't believe it was last time, not that I can remember anyways. And I don't know if we'll see too much of this in Eternal formats. In Commander, Canlander, etc., Enchantress decks, I imagine probably just have better stuff than this, but maybe if you're building a budget version, this could have a place. And as well, I know that there are people who love Pegasuses or Pegasi, so here's a way to just pop out a whole bunch of them. Yeah, looks like a solid card. Up next is Thrips, the Sudden Storm. Thrips is 3 blue for a legendary creature elemental giant at rare. It's a 4/5 flash flyer. Spells you cast with converted mana cost 5 or greater cost 1 less to cast and can't be countered. This card seems really good. 4/5 flyer with flash for 5 is right away a fantastic card, and making your bigger spells cost less is a really cool bonus. In limited, that doesn't mean too much. Just because you have this one card doesn't mean that you should load up on 5, 6, 7 drops. You're going to get screwed when you don't draw enough lands or you don't see this card. But in constructed formats, again, especially Commander and stuff like that, where you're going to be janky, your curve might be a little bit higher or greedier, this is going to be a pretty good play. Of course, outside of Commander or limited, this won't see any play. Up next is Annex, Hardened in the Forge. Annex is 1 red for a legendary enchantment creature demigod at uncommon. It's a star 3. Its power is equal to the devotion to red, so it's at least a 2/3 for 3. Whenever Annex or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. If the creature had power 4 or greater, create 2 of those tokens instead. Annex looks really good, looks like exactly what red wants to be doing. The more creatures you get on the board, the more powerful he is for just 3 mana. 3 toughness is a little bit low. It's going to trade down when it's going to trade down when it's a 7/3, but it was still only 3 mana to pump into it. And whenever other things are dying, you're getting yourself 1 or 2 little 1/1s. Great aggro card here. I don't imagine we'll see standard play with this, especially being legendary. Mono red definitely wants to just dump their hand, and if this is in your deck in multiples and they're sitting in your hand, they may stay stuck. But I'm sure some people will have fun with this in various casual, possibly jankier decks. Maybe an Aristocrats with red in it could do something with this. You're sacking your creatures, you're turning them into 1/1s, which gives you more 1/1s to sack. Maybe something happens there. Who knows? Maybe somebody can figure out Aristocrats in standard again. That would be pretty cool. We do have a free sacrifice outlet in black. Up next, also from Magic Wizards, is Renata, Called to the Hunt. Renata is 2 green for a legendary enchantment creature demigod at uncommon. She's a star 3. Her power is equal to your devotion to green. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. This seems very powerful. 4 mana, 2/3. Little bit expensive. We typically want a really good ability for that, and she has a pretty good ability for that. Every other creature you have is going to probably be undercosted. You're going to have a 4 mana 5/5. You're going to have a 5 mana 6/6, etc. if they were vanilla creatures prior to that. The problem, of course, with this ability is it requires her to come down on 4. Top decking her doesn't feel as good because then you still have to continue top decking creatures to actually get her ability to do something. That's for limited anyways. For constructed, she just seems too expensive and too unimpactful. I don't think she'll see any standard play, but I'll keep an eye on it. And again, she's a legendary. She's going to have some fun somewhere in Commander, I imagine. Up next is Mantle of the Wolf, as previewed by Not a Wolf. Mantle of the Wolf is 3 and a green for an enchantment aura. At rare, enchanted creature gets +4/+4. When Mantle of the Wolf is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create 2/2/2 green wolf creature tokens. This is scary. This is 4 mana for +4/+4 aura, which typically I don't really want to play because my opponent will just blow that creature up. Of course, if they don't, my 3/3 is a 7/7. That's very scary. If my opponent does blow up the creature, I still get 2/2/2s. This is like Knightly Valor, but on loads of cocaine. Just loads. It's a really good aura. It's going to be a super strong aura. Green rare auras tend to be like this. Not getting trample, of course, is a little bit of a whiff, but if you throw this on something that has trample or throw it on a flyer, even more terrifying, this is going to be pretty darn scary. And again, unless they bounce or kill your creature in response to this spell, you're still going to get 4 power, 4 toughness, or 4 mana. Seems great. Outside of limited, probably just relegated to Commander and such. I don't see any standard or eternal applications here. Coming into the home stretch as previewed by Elysium, we have Gravebreaker Lamia. Gravebreaker Lamia is 4 and a black for an enchantment creature Snake Lamia. It's got lifelink. It's a 4/4. When Gravebreaker Lamia enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card and put it into your graveyard. Spells from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast. So it's a 4/4 for 5 with lifelink. Sure, fine. That's an okay card. Probably a common. The bonus here, of course, is that you get to go and tutor up a card and throw it away, but that's probably going to be an escape card because now your escape cards cost less to escape. There's a whole lot of synergy going on here. If you don't get the escape cards to go with this, this card looks much, much, much worse. So I would be very careful about picking this highly unlimited, but I think it's going to be a great pack 2 pick 1 or pack 3 pick 1, even better. Pack 1 pick 1? I don't know. We'll talk about that more in the set review. Outside of that, it depends entirely on what kind of graveyard shenanigans you're doing in your various formats. At 5 mana, it's probably just too expensive for competitive Eternal formats, but again, like a lot of these cards I'm saying here, Commander's going to have fun with cards. I think this is going to be the year for Commander. I think you're going to get a lot of toys, whether they're amazing or not, who knows, but I think somebody will find something for this. Up next is Eaten Alive. Eaten Alive is 3 and a black for an instant at rare. Exile target creature or planeswalker. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. 4 mana, instant speed, unconditional removal. Exile removal, so it doesn't even go to the graveyard. We're going to love that in limited and in constructed. It kills a planeswalker, so we're still probably going to love it, even though 4 is getting a little bit towards the begrudgingly expensive side. And then if we have something to do with the graveyard, that's a cool little bonus. But yeah, this is our unconditional rare removal for the set. There's not much else to say about it. Up next is Dryad of Elysian Grove. Dryad of Elysian Grove is 2 and a green for an enchantment creature Nymph. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Lands you control have all basic land types in addition to other types, which means they tap for all colors. Your forests tap for white, blue, black, red, green. And actually, I guess would also tap for colorless because they would have the waste type, I think. I'll have to look into the set notes for that. Also, this is a 2/4. I don't remember if I mentioned this. This is great. It's 3 mana for an Oracle of Moldiah, except you can't play the top card of your library, which is definitely worse. But the fact that you're going to get to ramp pretty darn fast is a nice bonus here. Obviously, in Commander, if you have your Oracle of Moldiah out and hell, let's do it. Let's put down our Courser of Crufix as well. We can just be machine gunning lands off the top of our library as each of those give an additional land drop. Actually, Courser doesn't give an additional land drop, but Oracle certainly does, as does this card. And it totally fixes our mana, which may not be a huge concern in Commander, depending on who your commander is and what your mana base looks like. But in limited, it's going to be great fixing. Yeah, just a really cool card. I think we see a potential for a lot of play here in limited and Commander, possibly Canlander. Again, cards have to be really good to get into Modern and such. And I don't know enough about Pioneer to really know what's going on there. But Dryad of Elysian Grove, I want to play with this card. Up next is Discordant Piper. Discordant Piper is 1 and a black for a 2/1 creature zombie satyr. When Discordant Piper dies, create a white 0/1 goat creature token. Okay. It's a piker, and it leaves behind a body that doesn't matter. I don't know exactly what you're supposed to use the goat for. There's not really a huge aristocrat style deck. We don't need an 0-1 to sacrifice. It's a good chump blocker, I guess, once. But yeah, cute little card. It makes a goat. People like their goat tokens, but it's not going to see any play beyond limited. And even then, it's fine. And our final card for today is Utopia, the twice favored. Utopia, the twice favored, is 1 green/blue for a legendary creature, human wizard at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains flying until end of turn. Well, that's going to be scary if this comes down to the battlefield and you have some enchantments in your hand. If they're buffs, if they're like Mantle of the Wolf, and you put that on a creature and then also give that creature a counter and also give it flying until end of turn, that could just be the end of the game. Utopia is going to be very, very scary and limited. Creatures are just going to be flying, and it's not going to be fun for the person getting flown into the face. Outside of limited, I don't see really any play in any other formats. It might be an include in a random green-blue commander deck with enchantments, but yeah, limited, very scary. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Huge number of cards. We can't, what do we have? Like, I don't know, 2 spoilers left from this set. We've seen so many cards so far, but we'll see what we get for the next few days. Remember, starting Friday, we will have set reviews right here on the channel. Also on Friday, over on Loading Ready Run, twitch.tv/Loading Ready Run will be the pre-release. You'll get to see 8 great people play Magic. I will be in the LRR MTG judge chat, helping out anybody with chat questions. So keep an eye out for those Leek emojis. That is me answering questions. And yeah, let me know what you think of these cards. There's a lot to talk about in these cards, I think. I can't imagine what we have left for this set, but let me know whatever you want to let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me over on Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. You can find me at patreon.com/TheManaLeak if you want to help out that way. Go on over to inkedgaming.com/TheManaLeak to let them know that I sent you if you want to get yourself a playmat, dice bag, etc. And of course, the easiest way to help is to like, share, and subscribe. But if you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, see y'all tomorrow.